So let's try starting Triumph of Chaos, even though we can't figure out the rules. Sometimes fiddling around helps. That's about all I expect to do here. I don't think that I have the desire, but we'll see. Maybe it'll catch my attention a little more to try to play something out more than just fiddling. But the first things I have, I don't know what the hell those counters are, and I don't know what to do with them. And there's a whole bunch over there that I don't know what they are. I'm just hoping cards will tell me. But I don't know. There's tracks here. I don't know what they refer to. There's a lot of problems with that. I also have a problem with the 1918 reinforcements. So I decided to look that up. And this is just to show you where I am. So I look in this thing and, well, the index has one. Rule 14.0. Great. I hit a section on it. It's talking about a limited number. Each side has action cards which generate additional forces. Okay. You know what I don't know? I don't know the ones that I don't understand, these 1918 ones. Maybe they're in 1918 cards. Maybe that's all I can assume here. But I see nothing here that talks about reinforcements coming on in any other way. So I'm guessing these numbers, everything, those are all based on the cards, and that it's only the cards that are going to help me play. That until I deal out cards and start fucking around, I'm not going to see a damn thing about this game. And that's a very painful way to present a game. Unless you tell people up front, hey, look, all these counters, forget about them. You'll learn about them in the cards, because it doesn't feel that way. Let me show you why it doesn't feel that way. It doesn't feel that way because when I look at which of course the cards couldn't handle, but that may be different. Look at this damn thing. Here's the expansion stuff. So the Romanian forces simulate the brief war. A side may take a special action to declare a Romanian-Hungarian war. So I have the feeling that on all these special action rules and stuff, maybe that'll call up those reinforcements. You know, I'm going to have to know all these special cases to find these reinforcements and other counters that I need to play it reasonably. And the only way to do that, as far as I'm concerned, because I don't like reading compendiums of the special values of the different countries and all that. I don't really feel excited enough about the game the way I did about EU to be willing to invest that effort in. So I'm going to deal out some cards, see what happens, and if we end up with a core enough of a game that maybe I do want to investigate and see if I'm playing it anywhere near right, then it's worthwhile. But if I don't, I don't. So here we are in turn 1, and we're going to deal out 7 cards. Now I've already shuffled the decks to each player, and we also throw these in, and then we jump to the political phase, which is going to involve me studying all these decks. Nah, fuck that, right? To make my decisions. Try to make some sense out of what I want to do with my cards. I think about, geez, what about replacement points? Because I was thinking about reinforcements a little moment ago. And these are in the same roll. And the problem here is the card value on the cards. Faction replacement must be played. They give the cost of them. It sounds like you'd play them and they have immediate effect. But then they say replacement steps cannot be saved from one turn to the next. There's over on this track, you keep track of replacement steps on there. Nowhere in this whole replacement section does it seem to indicate when and how you buy them. So I don't know, maybe you can buy them whenever the hell you like, because there's no time in the sequence of play. And again, somewhere in the rules I came to the understanding that they get triggered later. Maybe it's in that mystery section 8 that's not in the rule book, but is in this thing. Because when I look through the sequence of play here, nowhere does it talk about getting your replacements. Let me see if maybe they're in this rule book. This rule book, by the way, has a playthrough, which could sometimes be of value. You know, I almost kind of, I'm going to look in the Kami guide or whatever the fuck it's called. But the example of play tells you almost nothing. It tells you a little bit about the political phase. Gives that in good thing. Then it gives this action phase where it gives very little. Shows you a combat. It would be more than enough if the game was, had rules rather than lots of words jumbled together. But, I just don't know. And this is all about the political stuff. Somehow I thought maybe that would be it, because I know the influence points are buried in here somewhere. This is just so pointless. I mean, it really is. I mean, the normal influence points are here, but there's influence points that sit around on you, and I think they're covered in here, maybe. Maybe not. Who knows? Who the hell cares? Yeah, I'm going to read the Comrade's Guide, because quite frankly, I don't think I can play this. I mean, I have too many questions about what's even happening. And when I try to look up the answers, unlike with A Lesser Wrath, which I had a lot of questions about, whoa, what's going on? Or even Axis Empires. I look for the answer here, and it doesn't seem to exist. Maybe, I don't know. I just don't know. Well, I was mistaken about that. It's a guide to what your best strategies on initial cards, especially from the political standpoint, would be. That's something I'm not even interested in. I want to know how to play the game. The rules don't tell me that shit. Most pointless fucking game I've looked at in a long time in terms of the rules. In a long time. All right. Yeah, I would quite possibly have just put this aside and said, this isn't a game. I mean, they didn't write it. The rules seem so badly damaged that I don't know how anybody plays this. I'll see. Yeah, my memory didn't fail me. When I turn the sequence of play, I see in the logistics phase, there's a replacement step, which is, I guess, when you buy your replacements and your repairs. You also get to place your IPs, purchase and place IPs and or buy leaders. And it says C section, not page 14, I think. So you can buy leaders, I guess, with replacement steps. And I think that I can buy the NC leaders, the leaders who didn't have counters for them in the original game. My guess is that those are basically just filler that I won't really want, but I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to kind of randomly pick actions. I look at the cards and, there are these damn things with, let's see, not that one. So this one, white Russia policy. White's won Russia policy. Now this is a red card. If played prior to the white play of action card number 15, roll a die. This could cancel white's 15. Well, I don't know what that is, but I'm assuming that's a red one Russia policy instead. But if played after white's play, roll a die, and it might cancel the white one anyhow. I don't know. And then it gives you 3 activations, which Is activations the same as activation points? No, I think that's going to actually be activations, movement, and combat that I have to try to do. So, I mean, I got no idea what these cards do without studying and playing the game. And, well, I'm sure I won't ever play it that much that I have a good feel for, whether or not I'm doing anything at all reasonable. I look at the board and I still don't know how you control something, right? I mean, I don't know what's controlled and what's not. And this is all disturbing. The whole damn game is just this blurred mess because someone could not read the rules and their developer couldn't bother to step up and get enough blind testing going, like, send it out to one person to read the rules and figure out, can you play it? Do you understand it? Can you teach me the rules after reading them? If you can't answer those questions, don't publish the goddamn game. Send it out to blind testers. But, Clash of Arms made a lot of money on this, apparently. And, they commissioned this thing supposedly due to high sales. Because when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter too much how good the game is. It just matters how much buzz you can create about it. And there may be a very good game here. I mean, people that I trust tell me that there is an interesting and good game here. I don't know how they learned it. So since this is just a playthrough test run, I did what I think is best for both people from my naive version, reading the player's manual. I didn't want to read all these cards. It's a pain in the ass. The rules are hard enough. Reading cards that are filled with references into the rules that are probably wrong because I don't have the errata right. Like, I noticed one at least that I know that there's more that should be said. I just put my highest ranked cards in the red and gray, and I put my initiative card in here, or my influence card in here. So we do, I think, red first. Maybe we do other first. There's an order to this. We do red first. It's important because the other affects things. Okay. So we each threw a 5 into play. That means we have 10 cards and nobody broke. So 3 are going to be chosen at random. We don't get to see those yet. So I'm going to hold that here and deal with that in a moment. We have the same effect here where both players put a 5 in play. If somebody hadn't had a 5, this might not have happened. Now, over here we have the influence cards, which remember they're random. So die roll modifier +1 for 1918. He's not ahead in VCs. I believe the Russians are considered ahead according to the errata for the first turn. The Tsar could not have been rescued. I don't control the train, I don't think, because it's under the Czechoslovakians. And until I control them, I don't get the train. But I do control the space they're in according to the faction control table, but maybe not this one, maybe the errata one. So I say I have +1. Wait, Denikin, is he on the map? Shit, I don't know. Yep, Denikin's on the map. So that gives me to 0. No white infighting. I think I'm behind in VCs, so I have a -1. So I rolled a 5. That gives me a CV of 2 here. And let's look at the Reds. They're ahead in VCs. So they're going to have a +1 to their die roll. And they get a 2. They're going to have a value of 1. So we're going to be looking at a total value of 3 here. With the whites ahead by 1, they're going to get to pick a card. They pick it before any of the unrevealed cards that I'm dealing out go. So I'm going to look through these and try to decide which one's the best for white. These are the influence cards. So they go back and they go back for next turn in the hand. They're not. The influence and bluff can only be used in the political phase, and there's only political phases in the first 9 turns, I guess. All right, so now I've got a pile of stuff to read and try to figure out, you know, what is going to do what I want, more or less. Unlike, you know, a situation that I'm familiar with, like dealing with Days of Decision and Whiff, where I can say, yeah, I'm trying to get this political point level on the game. I'm trying to, you know, maybe get the right to go through Belgium, or to get the Belgians and the Dutch to agree to build Maginot, either along to let them allow me to do it, or to improve our own functionality or whatever. Here, you know, this is just not something that's familiar enough to me that I can really relate to what the questions may be in it, especially since some of them may be in the game, like Wilson's mess. Well, that looks like just words. So that doesn't look like it has any effect. Most of them have no effect except the political effect on the powers. So that's what I'm going to kind of play with. I don't know what I want to do, because I can't figure the map of the game out yet, but that's okay. Let's get a framework for me to do things, and I'll pick one. Sorting through the deck, I culled about half of it out and said I'm not interested in these particularly. One I'm interested in, one of the few that has any effect. 2 of them have an effect that are listed here. One of them, ignore any IP effects on the Ukraine in this political phase. Well, I'm not too interested in that. That doesn't do much. It helps me with Poland and hurts me with the Central Powers. I'd rather not help the Soviets with the Central Powers right now. Later on, that means nothing. This one, though, Litbel proclaimed, if selected by red, 2 free red replacement steps. Well, red wouldn't be selecting this. This would be me or random. And the points kind of go towards me. Now, this would get removed from the deck until a reshuffle might happen, which only happens, I think, if they're needed. So that's kind of appealing. Some of these others give a lot of points in a lot of different directions, but I think I'm going to use this one to get it out of the deck, because if red does do any fighting, I'd rather they not get any replacement steps. Now, I don't know quite how to record this because I'm keeping the decks in there. For the others, I shuffled the decks, and I'm going to be pulling 3 cards out at random for each, and then we'll come back and see what the total tableau is on them. I ended up with a few of these. If selected by so-and-so, something happens. Well, these were all random, and this one was not. So now we really start looking through the point values. And if I understand this correctly, these all line up. This would be a mess otherwise. But we can... And I think this is actually kind of a clever design. I know I've been ragging on the game for a lot of reasons, but this is cute. So Estonia gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to white. And Estonia is going to be hopefully the first thing here. 5 to white is 2, 4. I've just gained control of Estonia. We'll get to that in a moment, but it means that I'm going to get Estonian troops on the board, and I've got to look up the rules on Estonia and all kind of cool shit like that. But we do know that we've done something cool there. The next one's Latvia, 3, 4, 6 to the right. And likewise, Latvia is going to run over to me. Now, I don't know, those AC-10s, I'll have to look that up too, because this may be they can't go that far without the activation card, the red activation card. For Lithuania, -2, 0, 1, -1. Well, -1's not enough to move me here. Now, if I had bought any influence points in the preceding turn, which didn't exist, they would be assessed now. I looked that up. Once you use replacement points on, I believe it is, you can purchase influence points instead, and they'll just sit on those countries, and they kind of give you a they're sort of flagging that you've got some interest in that country ahead of time so that your opponent knows what you may be up to. The Ukraine, 1 white, 1 red. Okay, we're up to 1 red total. We're up to 3 red. We're up to 2 red. So the Ukraine shifts over towards red. Oh, that's Lithuania. Now I'll have to look at the other chart, the more recent chart, to see if any of these change anything, because I don't have a copy of that to play on. Though Makhno, and so on. You see how that works. I'll come back and talk about whether anything exciting happens, and hopefully I'll also have figured out what happens, in terms of troop placement. I haven't found anything in the errata. When I looked over this is the kind of thing I'm seeing, and there's a lot of sections in the errata that are like this, but nothing that applies to this particular rule. These are restrictions that certain cards generate. Now, maybe that's on the cards. I don't have any of those cards in hand to be able to tell you, unfortunately. I would hope it's written on the cards and not just in the rules, but with this game, it's one of the things whenever I approach a CDG, and I don't know how much of the rules is hidden only on the cards, how much is buried in the rules that should be on the cards, all kinds of stuff like that. With something like Here I Stand, I was pretty comfortable. Everything was just on the cards, except for a couple of cards that said, hey, here's, you have to look here for the rule because this took more space than fit on the card. But with this game, I don't have that level of trust after reading the rules. Because of the fact that they call so many out, I almost feel like it's probably not on the cards, but I don't know. All right, I still haven't figured out where the troops set up. We've got US, Latvia, and Estonia coming to the white side. We lost the Czech Legion. The Czech Legion has run all the way over here. So I think we lost credit for the victory point city that they're sitting in here. I don't know for sure. But the Reds don't gain that. They haven't gotten control yet. And they don't get any advantage from influence. This is probably like the other major powers. An influence the Reds don't really get support from. All they get is further inactivity than just inactive. Because it's hard to pull things out of these. It costs 3 influence points to move it just 1 space. But the Reds got the Transcaucasus and Belarusia, and I'll spend some time trying to figure out where the setup roles are for those. So far what I've been able to find is under faction control benefits, there's a use of force. Control factions may stack. Okay, well, great. Where do I get my forces? I'll look under the specific group. Let's look at the Baltics. First of all, nothing has any notes except Estonia, where it says setup. Estonia has 2 armies. Place 1 random army in the dead pile when setting up. But it doesn't tell me where to put anything. Maybe this card tells me. Do they have forces on here? It doesn't look like it. These are going to be hard to paw through, but I'm not seeing them in general. So I'm going to have to look some more to try to figure out if there's somewhere in the rules that it tells me where these go. Again, people do play this game, so I'm assuming that it is a complete game somewhere in here. So far, all I've been able to find is what's on these cards. Nothing in the rules or in the supplement. First of all, there's an IP net. I don't know where that goes, but I feel like if I figure out where that comes from, and it doesn't seem to be in here. So faction control benefits, unless it's in these gray boxes, right? I haven't been able to find anything. Reinforcement faction units are rebuilt and arrive. Yeah, that's rebuilding. Forces are placed anywhere within their home region. Okay, a player can decide to place any corps either in their home region or in the strategic reserve. So that is the answer there. But what I'm now curious about is what's this IP net? Is that some bonus IPs that I'm going to get to place immediately? Given that I found this somewhere under here, under faction-specific rules. Seems like a strange place, but it is my own fault for not seeing that. I combed through this kind of about as hard as I can comb through something that looks like this. And then it has several pages of rules on Poland just buried in the middle of this whole thing. I really do not know what those are, and I can't go on until I figure it out, and I think it's too late. I got IPs here, but that's how you get there. Really a crappy rule set. It's got to be in here somewhere, but I don't know where. Maybe this is a new rule. Maybe this is something in the errata. No, we got them here too. Wow, Turkestan's got a 10R. That doesn't sound like what I've got here. I think they had like a 1 on here. I didn't get Turkestan, but most of these don't generate many. Let me see. The one place where the play aid actually goes into enough information is this political phase. And it doesn't make any mention of these. And what I'm beginning to think is that this is the net total number of what all the control markers are. So I did kind of well by getting a 3 white, 4 white ones into play, or 5 white. Just because it's going to be tougher now for red to push them out of there. Now I dig up the units and I try to put them where they belong. Now this is kind of interesting. The codes on the counters don't match what I'm supposed to do. Now, I can understand if these were different because this is from the errata affected thing. But when I look here, it says setup. Estonia has 2 armies. Place 1 random army in the dead pile when setting up Estonia. Well, over here it says the same thing. Random actually matters, so odd, even. So the weaker one died. But here it says their forces are 2 armies and 2 corps. And these guys say C on them, which indicates you get them when you get control of this group. And these say V on them, which seems to indicate that you would get something additional. Now here there's a bonus army if white controls all the Baltics. But I think I have that army in my force pool as something different that I don't know what it is. This actually looks pretty good about giving me a lot of the information that I need, as long as I don't read too much into it like I did with, hey, what's this IPs issue here? So, well, I'll keep pointing out things that I want to grouse about. You know, this is really the same situation I went through with A Lesser Wrath when I was trying to learn it, except there I didn't learn it on video. I felt like because I was doing that as, you know, I don't remember, with a review copy, essentially. I got a free bonus copy out of it that it wouldn't do to produce just this complaint. But if you look at some of the videos once I start playing, there is still a lot of complaining going on there. It's very hard to deal with bad rules and new and complex type circumstances. In the end, maybe this will work out okay. I don't know. But I only want to give it the one shot, really, at this point. There's a little problem. There are Germans in Estonia. And I noticed with the Belarus, now here, there's the CP restriction. Until the Central Powers withdraw, no Estonians can be set up. Estonia is considered neutral, but political control is possible still. So I didn't waste my points by doing this. I just don't get the troops there. And we'll see. We may have restrictions on the U.S. too. Latvia is going to be restricted. Looks like Transcaucasus is also going to be restricted. So we're going to have almost no units set up. I'll have to look to the U.S. and see what their rules are. They're going to have special rules here. So the U.S. setup is fully defined. The expeditionary force starts back here in the Urals. And these polar bear units, yeah, the U.S. recruited polar bears in Murmansk. And then one unit over here in the Strategic Reserve for whatever that's worth. Any particular interesting rules? White control of France generates one free RS. I'm wondering if these are errors. Because there's another thing here. White AC number 12 prevents movement of France from white control during political phase. I don't know what the card is. I'm going to read it as it's correct, but who the hell knows. But these came from the errata set, so if anything, it looks kind of like a cut and paste issue, but I don't have card number 12 or any other card that, tells me why that makes any sense. But if the white controls France, that would make sense that there'd be easier ammo coming. This other one, I'm not so sure, but maybe it's some deal between the U.S. and France over working in Russia. This is going to take a long time to get very little done. We come to another difficulty, and this is what I knew would be here. Beyond the who controls what, and I'm still confused by this city here. As far as I can count, that should be red. I don't think anything started, and I'll try to look there. But we're looking at a point-to-point map that's amazingly detailed and rather small. It's a beautiful piece of work, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's really a pretty map. If this were a Euro and there wasn't a lot of information to be gained in a lot of this, if it were a very simple game, it wouldn't be too terrible. But as it stands, it's very hard because the physical location of the pieces doesn't necessarily represent very well, in my mind, where they are. For example, there's no crossing here. Okay. Well, you could say there's no road there. The movement would be so impossible, or whatever, or that somehow this all interacts in some puzzly sort of fashion to prevent you from getting there. Although that looks unlikely. It looks like it's just such impassable terrain that they don't want to put a connection. Well, I'm sorry, my mind doesn't work that way. If I saw a mountain here in a hex grid and I knew mountains were impassable, that would be no problem. But as it stands, it is a real problem for my little brain because I don't see anything that really tells me you can't go there until basically I need a negation rather than, okay, yes, there's this kind of road here. Very, very hard for me to assimilate all the information on one of these maps. It's just that my brain doesn't work this way. I understand it must work that way for some people, but it's very, very difficult on me. I also have to look, we got all these terrain effects, and everything is kind of this pale gray zone. Now I can look and I can say, well, that's got to be forest and that's got to be swamp. But it's all this very kind of dull coloration that makes it difficult for me to, again, absorb the information that I need to from the map. I was hoping to get at least one card played before I start work this morning, but I don't think it's going to happen. Instead, I'm going to try to track down that victory point situation. Now, I did find a rule on control markers. Control marker that kind of helps here. Again, maybe the rules are here, they're just buried in places that they don't belong. Control markers are placed to indicate control of a space. At the beginning of the game, all spaces within a side's home region are friendly unless controlled by the enemy. Yeah, there's no definition that says red controls any of these anywhere that I've found, except this kind of vague, if clearly behind the... apparently you can't move down rivers. I'm not sure about that. Because I don't see them as a type of road. They don't seem to have an effect. Which seems very strange. I mean, well, you got your connection there. Okay, good enough. Yeah, but you don't have one here. Boy, that seems unbelievable to me. Right here, following major river with no connection whatsoever. Is that possibly believable? I don't know. But yeah, there doesn't seem to be anything that really clearly defines this beyond this one line over in the setup that says this space and all other spaces should be obvious. Well, all other spaces aren't obvious. This one clearly is under red control by my understanding, which to me means they should have another victory point city. Because I count one. Let's keep counting here. Yeah, that's a victory point city. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's not one. 7, 8. Well, now I'm at 8. Maybe it is one. Well, what about Kronstadt then? That puts me up to 10. Jesus, I don't know. I hate counting. If you watch many of my vids, you know this. That's 2, 3, 4. Well, my tea's ready to boil. I'll come back to count again. Okay, well, I think I just hate counting. Because I'm coming up with 9 now, including Kronstadt and Onega. I was coming up with 9 before, but maybe because of their bad description, which was 7 red area ones, which I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, there's still 2 left here. Oh no, 9 red area ones, right? Let me see how it's worded. God, you know. Nine VC in Red Helm plus 2 for Helsinki and Finland. And Migaguskana. Okay, we got those. So the question is -2 occupied by the Czech Legion and this. So these are the 2 I don't have. So there should be 7 more in red areas, and I gotta go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It looks good to me. So it's just the wording that had me confused. And I'm assuming the white ones are right. I haven't figured them out yet. On the other hand, the white ones don't make sense. But this may be the errata here coming into play. I don't know for sure. The white markers are placed on 7. 7 VCs in white home regions, okay. 1, God, I hate this. 2, maybe this, but that looks like it's in Astrakhan. The number matches Astrakhan's here. 1, 2, 3, that's one of the ones I'm missing, but I get to count it anyway. 4, I'm missing that. Oh, that's red area. 3. Yeah, that doesn't look much different, but it is. 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I'm at 6. Let's try counting again. Maybe we'll get a different number this time. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Hard to see the damn things. 4, 5, 6. Okay. Well, that's all the white ones I see. What am I missing? Maybe Ostracon is supposed to be over there. Who the hell knows? Jesus fucking Christ. So there's 4 here and 3 here. That comes up to 7. Okay. I don't know what I wasn't seeing. Oh no, this is not 1. No, there's 3 here. So 3 here and 3 here. And that equals 7. Okay. I'll believe him. What the hell? Or maybe they're counting this one. But again, no idea. And maybe it all works out. But maybe it don't. All right, so that's 3 and 3 is 7. And now we go to minus red controlled this. So that puts me to 6 according to them. And then I'm supposed to go up to 7 for Samara here. But I also originally had the Czech Legion, but this is where it gets different. So, I mean, I just get nothing from their numbers, you know, and I don't know what I'm doing at all. As long as I can't resolve these things, none of it makes any goddamn sense to me. Oh, wait, I got one here. Here's the 7th one. Okay, so there's my 7 whites, which I was supposed to have. Now, the 2 extra that I say I have are for Samara and for the Czech Legion, and I think the Czech Legion one may be something that showed up in the errata, although it was on the original faction control sheet. That, if I can find the Czech Legion, that white is credited for victory cities when it was at influence, which is where it started the game. Now, I lost that. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm at 8. Now, that's still more than they gave me. So let's try counting this again. 1, 2, 3 out of the 4 here. 3 more, 6, 7. What would be my 8th one? I don't have it. So I think this drops down to 7. It would have been at 8, not at 9. But then there's rules about on the first turn, red gets to break ties or something in terms of being ahead in somewhere. So I think that's where that's supposed to be. And now I should have loaded my components that allow me to work. And it's almost time for me to actually log in. Okay, let's start. First of all, I'm actually going to play a card, I think. I've put the round marker on the high round. I'm going to count down. The reason for that is, honestly, I can't remember how many rounds there are in each turn because it changes. It may be listed in one of these on-map things, but I don't see it. That's not it. It's in the rule book, and I don't want to look it up every time I play around to see, hey, have I reached it yet? So a countdown works better for me. I thought maybe there was a counter I could use, like these round SRs, but I think that's how many times I do a strategic reserve and or reinforce, but I don't know because that shouldn't be double printed, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. that marker can be used to indicate, hey, that's what you did last round, so you can't do it again this one. And that's a helpful little mnemonic for me, because I step away from the board quite often. There are a lot of player aid type aspects, like the information on the setup on the map and such not, that is helpful stuff. It's not like the designer didn't put an effort to try to do things that would help here. In a lot of ways, it's just the rule book is such a mess. Okay, let's see what I'm going to play. I thought I turned it over already. Okay, there it is. I'm going to play the switch sides card. It has an asterisk, so it's a one-use card. It says select a space containing red units and no leaders. Roll a die. Now, the errata, I got this far in the errata. The target must be adjacent to a friendly unit. This unit's friendly. Remember, the Czech Legion is not. And that's all Czech. So I can't use that. This unit is friendly, but these guys are just core. I'd like to hit an army. The Finns aren't friendly, I don't think. I can't tell for sure. I don't know. I don't know. I think these are actually. These are white Finns. But I can't hit a victory point city, so I wouldn't be able to hit there. So the only real interesting places that I can hit are these two. Now I want to avoid an elite unit. I think those are the ones with these E's on them. That would make sense. So either of these is fine. I'm going to go for the stronger one because I don't see a real territorial advantage to going into either of these. So by going for a non-elite, I'll be rolling on this table. And then I get to replace it with one of these two armies. And I have to see this rule 16.36, which is where I have this. They and their replacing corps, which go in the SR, function like regular units. They may replace any enemy unit. The armies are placed in full supply in the turn they're placed. Once they've both been placed, no further switching of side can be played. I'm assuming one of them's red and one of them's white. I'm not sure I can tell the difference or find them. Well, there's a Galician, but I don't see a Galician army. It's probably in here somewhere. Probably looks different. Well, hopefully I'll be able to find it. God knows. Okay, I rolled a 1, so it's going to be successfully placed. So I've got to look for the Grigoriev or Galician. I think the Galician's going to be the white one, but I'm not. Fortunately, from all that, it sounded like there's supposed to be an army, but all I can find for these are corps, which doesn't seem to represent the situation that the rules talk about at all. But again, I don't have a lot of confidence that these rules work at all. I've got some pieces I don't understand, like this Tokmamov. Wrangel, I think, is a replacement for a P. He's got a B on him, but who knows. I've got these People's 6 armies. I don't know what they mean. Got some variables here. Maybe these will be useful. I don't know why I didn't place them. I've got variables here, but I haven't sorted through the red one. Indeed, the Galician looked so much like the Gregorievich in terms of being red and white that I couldn't tell who's it's supposed to be. I can't, they look like they're the same faction. Well, they're not. These are switch side units. Now this one gets destroyed. It goes over in the dead pile. And then I have to figure out where to put these. I've gotten one marker down, or one card down. And, eventually maybe I'll get some idea of what I'm doing here. But this is really unpleasant. I gotta sort these. This all kind of highlights one of the things that I don't like about CDGs. With the simpler ones, hey, maybe it's not that big a deal. They can reference things in the rules, or they can, you're looking at a couple of pieces maybe. But here, so much of this game is filled with pieces that I don't know how and when they come into play. So for example, this card generated a V unit. It's a 1918 card. Why isn't it in the 1918 pile of stuff? I don't understand that. I don't understand what determines whether a counter has an 18 on it or a V. And there doesn't, like I said, there doesn't seem to be any rules for these being some kind of automatic reinforcements that just come into play. I'll look again. Maybe they are. Maybe they go into the dead pile and I can build them then. That seems like a lot. That doesn't seem to match what the rules say. Rules say reinforcements come from cards, but I don't know. Now, I thought they were cleaned out of the backyard, but there's this one poor guy. He used to have a broom, but then a bunch of people came and took it away from him, and now he's picking up little bits of dirt or something and rocks by hand and dumping them in this barrel. I have no idea what he was doing. He was trying to sweep this entire pile of dirt before. This is more interesting than the game, so I thought I'd focus in on it. It's a red card that I don't quite understand. Green Uprising. Select one red or white home region, roll a die, and then you generate green core or activate spaces. I think I can throw the core anywhere I like. So I could do this Green Uprising, which will generate these green core units, somewhere within white and kind of clutter up their ability to advance. Now, given the fall here, well, see, it doesn't really help me to fill this. I think I have to get this army out of here if I want to save it. I'm thinking, you know, maybe I wanted to throw green units all over Kuban, but this one's not going to solve me. So I guess this makes sense to me. It's got special rules here, and it wasn't clear to me where I can place it, but it looks like I'm guessing I can just throw it anywhere I like, even though it says Ukrainian Independence Movement up here. That's just the picture, I guess. Just so hard to try to puzzle out what is meant by the cards in each case. Feel like I need clarification. Maybe there's something in the guide. I don't know. But I'll keep looking for what the red player is going to do with his action. I've settled on playing this Check of Treachery card because I can't play it for an event, and I don't think I want to take many free actions. So this is going to end up in the discard pile. It's a powerful card that maybe I'd like to hold for turn 2, but giving me 3 activations, one of them will be able to get me out of there. So let me grab some little counters. I'm not sure who uses what here or if it matters much. I have these. I'm not quite sure what they're all meant to do. You know, I mean, why multiple action? I don't know what that does. But I guess I'll throw this on this one. And I'm going to get 2 more actions that I get to make. Now, when I do an activation, I think that's all I can do is activate units for movement or combat. And I'm sorry for how I'm playing this, but this is how I'm going to learn the game, and this is all I'm doing. I'm not going to do another game with this, I don't think, until afterwards, or long afterwards, probably. So, as an operation activation is the number of spaces that I can activate for movement or combat. So I got to kind of think, well, what else do I want to do? I had other cards that gave me activations that I was considering. For example, this one gives me 1 activation. That may be enough. It allows me to attack some territories. Well, I don't particularly want to declare war on those factions right now, so that 4-point card might be useful. Concentration would allow me to take my reserve points later and build up forces using them without the restrictions on areas that I would normally have during the phase for that. So that might be something I want to do, but I think using this card now seems reasonable. Of course, I still haven't figured out what these 18 and 19s are. I really ought to figure that out before I continue going. I gotta trust these all come by cards because it says enters via action card rather than something else. And over under the action cards, there doesn't seem to be any right to just add units if I'm, except by event, I guess. As replacement, see, it could be as replacement steps. That's the thing I'm wondering here. Oh, activations, operations, the value indicates. See, why call it two different things and then say activates via, right? Is that how it says it? God, I hate this. Enters via action card. See, that doesn't really say it, but activation sounds almost like it should bring a unit into play. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Activation restrictions. I mean, this whole thing is just a mess. All right, but under reinforcements, it's pretty clear that it seems to come from card numbers. I just am not seeing, I don't have much of the deck, and I'm not seeing anything that seems to bring units into play, except units that come into play from the V cards, or from the V counters, which we've seen happen already. And this really bugs me. Like, it makes me think, geez, maybe I can get them as my replacement points. I don't know. So if I'm setting this unit out to move, and I'm looking for something else that I really want to do, and nothing really comes to mind, there is some threat here to maybe a white core cutting. Oh no, that's not a movement line, I don't think. I think that's something else, maybe. I don't know. That gray line doesn't appear to be on this. Might be some kind of boundary, but I don't know what. I mean, it goes off the map. It looks like just some kind of line drawn along the river, rather than part of the actual movement faction. I was thinking this white core could slide in here, but it doesn't look like that's actually territory, a movement possibility. I almost wish the rivers weren't on the map because they make this harder to see. So for example, here there's a river crossing, but there's no bloody river around. So it's not like the rivers are serving much purpose even to try to show you something that's useful on the map. They should be in a more muted tone, certainly rather than these dark gray lines that look like some kind of movement indicator. Anyway, what I was going with is, I don't see anything that red really needs to do other than get this guy out of here. Now I'm spending my movement action on that, and 3 works out pretty well for me. Let's grab a smaller counter. I guess this is what these are for. It's not explained. And I'm going to put attack counters here and here. I'm going to be allowed to do a coordinated attack because Trotsky's here. Now, there's some issue here, which is that this is Stalin faction and this is Trotsky faction, but I don't think that affects me because we don't have an infighting in play right now yet, as far as I can tell. I'm not sure how those get triggered. I think they come from cards or something. Damned if I know. So much of this game is hidden from me because I don't have the cards. The cards aren't part of the rules in the sense that they're not able to be perused and looked at to see, am I understanding this correctly, without breaking the game as I'm playing it, which is the problem I have, of course, with the reinforcements too. Once I set up the game and start playing it, I can't learn it anymore. But I can't comprehend the game without all that information. Yet doing that all beforehand doesn't work for me. And it's just, again, one of these problems with CDGs as a mechanism. Much of the special rules is baked in relation to the cards. And without, test running, I'm not going to know whether or not I'm playing right. This is my guess. Oops, that should be a combat. Huh. Different side. Whatever. Okay. Yeah, I don't understand. Why is this? This is a white one, I guess. I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't know what I want. I don't know what these mean. Why are there different counters? Who are they for? What do they mean? Why is there tanks on some? And are these different sides? I don't know. No idea. But I don't have a tank involved in this combat, so I'll go without a tank. Anyway, what we're going to do for movement, this guy has 3 movement points. This is a normal road as far as I can tell, so I can just move over it. 1, 2. Oops, I lost my combat counter. That's what went wrong. Well, I want to use one of these tiny ones. So that's one of my actions, is to move into place here. Now I get to do this combat. Now, to do the combat, the first question is, does Denikin want to fight here? I'm looking at 3 strength points. Uh, 7, 8 strength points to what looks like 6. That doesn't sound too terrible. Does Denikin have anything special? Yeah, he has IP purchases and end of infighting rolls. Well, I guess I better look them up. I'm looking at Trotsky here, who has lots of special rules too, that all have to be looked up to see if that has any effect on my decisions. So, one nice thing is I can walk away from this even in the midst of an activation. But one thing about CDGs that I do like is like the pulsed games, like say Victory Games Civil War, or let's see, Vietnam even, although that's always a problematic game for me, Korean War, all those Victory Games. The CDGs work the same way, not surprisingly that Mark Herman would come up with this, in that I can walk away after one pulse. You know, I can do one little action and walk away. Of course, that one little action may be a little bit more expensive to figure out, so in terms of being able to play the whole damn thing out in one sitting, or play large stretches in one sitting, that's hard because there's these nice little discrete points, so I keep walking away, so that stretches the game out. Of course, there's also my talking, which stretches it out. Alright, I'll try to figure out this combat, and that'll probably be the end of this video because it's taken a long time. We'll just separate this first turn out into lots of videos as I try to figure this beast out. Okay, so let's see, taking away a while away, but let's see if I can finish off this combat, or start this combat here. So, I don't want to withdraw. What about other special abilities that I could do? And again, you know, I'm never going to do this again in this detail, but I'm trying to get an idea of how the game works, and I haven't been able to do it from the rules themselves without playing. And it's kind of unfair to play it out this way. I don't do this with any other, I haven't done this with any other games. But let me try to find those. Yeah, I'm not finding what my different letters mean. I've got withdraw, pursue. Pursue is if I withdraw, I can keep following him and keep attacking, essentially. R is something else. Maybe reinforce. You know, without the cards, I wouldn't have any idea that these abilities are here because I can't find them easily in the rule book. This is, again, a painfully... Alright. So, let's see. I don't have a Cav leader. I don't know if Cav armies matter. Like, I don't know if they say something on them again, like the cav leaders say cav. That says cav. Well, that says cav up there, but it doesn't say it anywhere to really reflect it. So I'm not sure whether or not cav leaders and armies work together. It's so hard to digest this and remember it for me. Okay. So you need more cav steps. I think it's going to say that on there. Jesus Christ. All right. So, I don't think I have an opportunity to reinforce here because I have nothing adjacent to it. If I could pull a reinforcement in, that would give me a shift. I may have some initiative cards. I do. And I should have paid attention to this because these, allow you to say stop an activation after the marker's been placed. A leader success, and then there's diplomatic initiative it can be played as. This card can't be played as an event on turn 1 or in 1918 at all if I play AC number 3, which I haven't seemed to have played for anything. I wonder if that means only if I play it as an event. That would make sense, but that's not spelled out. Do we have any elites here? I'm trying to look for all the modifiers that might be possible. So they've got an elite, Denikin does. The Reds do not, I think. Oh, they've got an elite too. So both have the same amount of elite steps unless this thing under here is elite, which it is not. Oh shit, I forgot to look up my rules on Trotsky and Denikin. Yeah, I gotta look those up. I'm never gonna get through this combat because I want to do it in 5 minutes or less while I'm waiting for something. So I'll come back and try again a little later, maybe in a few hours. Maybe eventually I'll have enough time that I can actually get through this one card play. References, again, are just a good thing. They turn you back a way to look into all the little special conditions. So it's actually a helpful thing that they're present on those cards. You'd want to use these cards even if you use the basic game, I think. I still can't remember what these capabilities are. I have to look those up again. Shit. But I don't think I want to withdraw. This is exploit. I don't know what this is. I don't remember. Let me see again. Here they are. Withdraw. They're under a special rule only. Withdraw, pursue, which happens in response to a withdrawal. Reinforce, we're not going to be doing that. Counterattack is if the defender is attacked, not coup or anything like that. And exploitation is if the attacker wins. Okay, so I think actually the core of the attack is going to be pretty easy. We just look for the modifiers. We didn't try a withdrawal. No reinforcement. No initiative cards were played. Elite steps are even. Nobody has mech or tanks or air. What about the terrain? The terrain includes a bridge. So, defender on VCs is +2 in selected cities. Does this say anything like +2 on it? No, it doesn't, but it does have this bridge. River crossing, one attacker left. I'm gonna have to look to see if that applies because I'm attacking from 2 directions. Some games that kind of thing applies, some it doesn't. That's usually pretty easy to find in a rule book, but in this rule book, anything is difficult to find. It wasn't too hard. Now, my state of mind is terrible right now, which is part of why this is so difficult, but I think part of my state of mind is because it's so difficult. So, negative column ships happen if half or more of the involved steps share that negative status. I would say half do here. Or half are crossing that river. I didn't activate this for movement, otherwise maybe I could have slipped a unit around there to get the advantage. But instead, I'm going to have a shift to the left for the attacker, and that's it. We add all the CMs. We subtract the lower total from the higher total. Yeah, I don't know what that's... Oh, that's for die roll modifications. We don't have a die roll modification, we have a shift. We check. Doesn't seem like there's any modifications. And now here are the column shifts. So we check supply. Supply is going to be existent because I'm assuming all this back here is controlled by the reds, given the way the rules are worded. And after clearing up my issues with the victory cities, anything that involves my counting is difficult. And the whites have this back here. So what did we have for strengths? We had, again, I'm sorry about how complicated this is for me, 5, 6, 7, 8 to 6, I believe it was. 8 to 6. I'm going to need a different colored die. I'll grab a red die. For the reds, if I can find... Well, I'll use this one for now, and I'll switch later. And the 8 has one shift against it. Well, 8 means 6, so we're actually both on there, so I'm on the 5 with the attacker, and I thought I'd have the advantage here, but it turns out I don't. We both roll deuces, which means we each do 3-step losses. Now remember, you take an amount of damage equal to, but not exceeding your units. So if I take a 3, well, I could reduce these two, or I could reduce this core and this unit for the attacker, the army here, and that cost me 3. I could have taken a destruction on the army, and over here, well, for the whites, I'm pretty much forced, because this core is only worth maximum of 2, of taking a hit on the elite army. And that's now reduced the strength of the army as well. It reduced the red army. And now what happens? So who won the combat is the first question. Technically, I think the whites won it because they took the same amount of losses. See, there's all this example written in everything as though it's regular rules, and that's very disturbing to me. I like that stuff to be able to be in italics or blocked off in some kind of unambiguous way, but also unobtrusive way, where it neither looks like normal rules nor does it jump out more than the rules. So italics are good for that, kind of gray print is good for that, but they don't bother to do that here. So I'm having trouble finding any given rule because of that aspect. And I can't find out who won, so I'm going to have to step back and figure this out. I'm pretty sure the defender won. I'm not sure if there's going to be a retreat from that. No, there will not be a retreat if that's the case. So then the question is, will Denikin want to counterattack, which will be using his capability here. Okay, so I'm correct in that the Reds lost that battle, and now under counterattack, if a defending stack inflicts more losses than an attacker, well, that's not the case. So we're not going to get a chance to counterattack because we didn't inflict a greater damage, is my take. Even if we did, I'd have some questions here, because it's going to be one combined attack if the attacker utilized a multi-space attack. So I'm going to be attacking both of these units then? That seems unwise at the least, because then I'd be even weaker, and at least some of my forces would be crossing this. I don't know how to appropriate that, but I'm guessing I would take that terrain penalty. So I really don't want to counterattack here. I think that's the first card for the Reds that I've played here. And that's this card. It didn't use its special ability, so it goes in my discard pile. And I think I'm getting a feel. Now, in other games that I've dealt with that are this complicated, and you know, I feel I owe this both to Herr Doctor and to the game. I went and said, okay, I'm going to figure this out and play it on my own a little bit. I talked about that before with Axis Empires and with a Lesser Wrath over here from the Red Sash. And I don't feel like, you know, I gave you that unadulterated view of how me facing the rules is. And this is kind of a nice thing to see, I think. It's a shame for this game that you had to see it, in the sense that it takes away from the game. But what you have to realize is when I talk to you about a rule set as hard, this is the kind of difficulty that I have going through it. And if you are already familiar with Triumph of Chaos and have dealt with these issues before, or with some of these other kind of more complicated games that I had to struggle through, you might be able to come up with some kind of parity as to, you know, what the difficulty is. Because, like I said, this is a game that a lot of people have bought and given up on, but there's also a decent number of people, by no question, that play this and like it. So, you know, for me to reach for something like this is tough. I used to have an easier time getting new ideas and new ideas into my mind. Eventually, once I do figure it out, I hope to get out a rules intro, because I don't see one on video, certainly not on Board Game Geek. And my first one, my intro for this, is just useless, right? And I think I removed these markers. I don't think they serve any purpose anymore. I'll load this up and I'll continue this first turn as I get a chance.